00349. And again, this is the third of our public meetings in these two cases. We conducted two last week. They've all been conducted virtually due to the ongoing pandemic, state of emergency. We have an email address. If you happen to be watching this via YouTube and you have an interest in signing up to speak tonight, you can send an email, and the address is psc.meeting@ky.gov. And please include your name, your address, and a phone.
Can't hear you.
So the Service Commission. Can everyone hear me? Okay.
So you're breaking up some, but I would hear you okay.
Okay. How about this?
Several people are not muted.
Our mission is to foster the provision of safe and reliable service at a reasonable price to the customers of jurisdictional utilities, while providing for the financial stability of those utilities by setting fair and just rates and supporting their operational competence by overseeing the regulated activities. The Public Service Commission is an independent regulatory agency. It's a three-member commission. It has functions that are of a judicial nature, and we regulate rates and service provided by jurisdictional utilities. That's about 1,100 jurisdictional utilities. The bulk of those are small systems, water and sewer utilities, also natural gas distribution systems and interstate pipelines. The electric utilities, those are the investor-owned, and the jurisdictional cooperatives. We do not regulate utilities that are the co-ops that fall under TVA, nor do we regulate, except for gas pipeline safety, we do not regulate municipal utilities. I have a few slides on the rate making process, and given that we have more than 30 people signed up to speak tonight, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the rate making process. It is a legal process that is defined by state statutes, regulations, and then the application of those statutes and regulations through cases. By statutes, our rates must be fair, just, and reasonable. And utilities are allowed through rates to recover their costs of serving customers, plus the ability to earn a reasonable rate of return on capital investments. What that means for an IOU, for an investor-owned utility, they're entitled to an opportunity to earn a return on equity. And for the co-ops, their rates must be adequate to meet their lender requirements and also to maintain their financial stability. Also, per statute, rate case has a timetable. A utility is required to file a notice 30 days before they submit an application, and they also are required to provide public notice to their customers. And then the timetable for a rate case begins when an application is deemed complete. The PSC, we typically impose a suspension period, as we did in these two cases, LG&E and KU. And then also by statute, the case must be completed within 10 months. And the rate making process includes interveners, discovery, public meetings, such as we're having tonight, public comments, which can be submitted, and I'll give you all that address for submitting public comments if you haven't already done so toward the end of the presentation. And then a hearing, a formal hearing, and post-hearing filings, and a final order based on the case, on the record in the case. And the rate-making process it's a two-stage process. Part one of that is determining a revenue requirement for the utility. And then the rate design is the allocation of the costs and revenue over the various rate classes. Most of you are probably aware that there were several announcements yesterday regarding a settlement agreement among LG&E and KU and the parties to the two proceedings. We will not be addressing the specifics of that settlement agreement during tonight's public meeting. The settlement agreement has to be approved by the Public Service Commission, and there are some items, such as the proposed changes to the net metering tariff, that are not in the settlement agreement. The Public Service Commission will conduct a hearing at the beginning Monday, April 26, as had been scheduled. Additionally, public comments are still being accepted in these two cases. So the additional applications from the utilities included elements regarding their proposed revenue increase, certificate for public convenience and necessity to deploy advanced metering infrastructure, changes to the net metering tariff, some items regarding environmental cost recovery surcharge that they would move into base rates, so changes to their depreciation schedules, and also an establishment of a one-year economic relief surcredit. And the interveners in the case include the Attorney General's Office of Rate Intervention, and you can see other interveners on the screen there. I won't read through all of them. The differences being between LG&E and KU, as of course the Louisville Jefferson Metro Government for LG&E and Lexington Fayette Urban County Government for KU, and then also the collective joint interveners had a slight difference between the two utilities. So I mentioned the hearing, the formal hearing beginning next week, April 26th. The hearing is scheduled to last several days. It will be virtual, and you can view it via YouTube. And I mentioned also public comments. We're still accepting public comments in these cases. The address to submit public comments is here on the screen. It's psc.info@ky.gov. And please include the case number in the subject line, and then full name and place of residence in the body of the email for your public comments. I am now going to turn off the presentation, and Commissioner Matthews is the presiding commissioner for tonight's public meeting, so you will be seeing her shortly.
flawless. Appreciate that.
You're good to go, Commissioner Matthews. Thank you.
Thank you.
I
Okay,
hear
well,
you.
I won't be able to match the great job I did of my introductory remarks this time, since I got almost all the way through it before I figured out that we didn't have any sound. I'm Talina Matthews. I'm a commissioner here at the commission. This meeting is being recorded for the benefit of the public, the record, and in order for the other two commissioners to review and consider. We are here today to take public comments in the rate cases of Louisville Gas and Electric, case number 2020-00350, and Kentucky Utilities 2020-00349. To reiterate the point that was made during the overview, the role and obligation of the Commission is to ensure that rates are fair, just, and reasonable. We understand that in any rate case proceeding, there are strong feelings and opinions. We ask that as you provide comments today, that you are respectful and also mindful of the time limit for each speaker. We are here to listen. Louisville Gas and Electric and Kentucky Utilities are not presenting during the public comment meetings, and neither are the interveners in the case. The utilities and other parties have their opportunity to make their case during the pendency of this case. This is an opportunity for customers of the utilities and the public to state their positions, concerns, and to provide the Commission comments for its consideration. Again, we're here to listen. During today's comment sessions, I will not be able to answer questions. The Commission is a fact finder and decision maker in this case, and as such, the Commissioners are unable to comment or speak to the process or substance of the pending applications. Nevertheless, questions you raise during your comments may well be of assistance to the Commission and its staff in adjudicating this matter. If you have questions for the utilities or parties to this case, you may ask them during this public meeting with the anticipation that those entities can later convey an appropriate answer outside of this public meeting. Contact information for the companies can be received by calling the Kentucky Public Service Commission and speaking to our staff at 502-564-3940. Given the number of participants, at last count was 36, that have initially indicated their interest in providing comments, we will be limiting the length of comments to 5 minutes. I will let you know when you have 1 minute remaining. As always, written comments may be made to the Commission at any time during the consideration of a case and must include your name, address, and state the appropriate case number, that is, again, 2020-00350 for LG&E, and 2020-349 for KU. When you speak, please provide your name and address prior to your questions and comments. Okay, we're going to get started with the first person. The first person on my list is Jean Christensen. Ms. Christensen? I think you're on mute.
Okay.
Now
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay. Jean Christensen, 1465 South 2nd Street, Louisville, Kentucky, 40208. I'm a shareholder in the PPL, and I would like to speak against the recent moves that LG&E, which are in essence a tax on its own customers and on the environment. The raise in rates has been addressed by the settlement, but not yet ratified by the PSC, and I suggest that they might be further altered in favor of the customers. But I would like to speak mostly to the unhappy assault that these requests make on the environment. We bought solar installations some years ago, and part of our calculation as to making it economically feasible for us was the net metering part. This calculations of the net metering went into our consideration. And then every year since then, LG&E has spent millions of dollars, it seems, lobbying for policies that will move against the net metering and hurt us. We would like to discourage, I think that accepting their wishes will discourage investment, and it certainly ignores the crisis, the developing crisis at this point in time against the environment. I also would like to speak against the pipeline, the proposed Jim Beam pipeline, as it will be drilling through dangerous karst tendered land. It will possibly disturb ancestral graves, and it will mitigate migratory passages for animals moving from the north to south or south to the north. Furthermore, it will build a pipeline that will be viable for many years past the time when it should not even be needed. I hope that you will consider the environmental challenges as seriously as you consider the human difficulties brought about by their requests. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Christensen. Appreciate your comments. You did not give your name and address at the beginning. I think you probably did while you were on mute. If you could do that for the record, please.
Okay, Jean Christensen, 1465 South 2nd Street, Louisville, Kentucky, 40208.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Virginia Lee. Well, I'm going to mark that one and come back. For the expediency of time, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And I need to make a blanket apology to all of you. I apologize to your ancestors. I will probably get your name wrong. I apologize. Dan Nolette?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Very good. The name is Dan Nolette, and address is 1571 Lanark Drive in Danville, Kentucky, 40422. And I've been a Kentucky Utilities customer since 1989. Generally consider KU to be a reliable electricity provider and a good utility, but I'm concerned about the proposals, and there's two specific points that I want to make and speak against. First is the proposed rate increase, which is very large, and it's timed at a very bad point in our state and local economy. And it's structured in a way such that it would have a negative impact on the customers that are least able to bear the increase. The rate increase comes out as an average of 10% across KU's customers. I really don't know of any good reason why a 10% increase would be needed. Certainly it's way above the rate of inflation that we've been experiencing, 3% or so on average. It's the third requested increase in the last 4 years. We're also coming to the end, I hope, of a worldwide pandemic that has caused a huge economic blow to our state, to our local area. People are out of work and unemployment is high. We may be seeing some signs of recovery, but it's too early, and especially too early to be putting a very large additional increase in cost of living to the average Kentucky family. The proposal is also structured in a way that biases the increase to the basic monthly fee. And so for somebody with a relatively low energy usage, this could be as much as a 15% increase in just that basic monthly fee. And it biases it away from usage fees. So someone who uses a lot of energy would see a much smaller percentage increase than someone who uses just a little bit of energy. And that means that those folks who can least afford it, poorer households, unemployed people, retirees, those are the ones who would bear the brunt of that increase. And I think that's the opposite of what we should be doing long term, penalizing small users and encouraging us. Really, the small users are trying to conserve energy. The second point I want to make is the proposal about the solar installations, especially the rooftop solar installations that we expect to see more because the price of solar panels has come down so rapidly over the last decade or so. The proposal reduces the net metering benefit by up to 75%. That's huge. And several of my, especially the rooftop solar installations that we expect to see more because the price of solar panels has come down. I'm sorry, someone else was talking at the same time. The solar installations, I believe, as the earlier person stated, everybody plays in their economic calculation, what that breakover point is. And as we want to be encouraging rooftop solar. It's a distributed energy, which means that it's not centralized, localized. It makes the grid more robust. And I think that's something that we need to be doing. I lived overseas twice over the last decade, and I've seen when I lived in Taichung, Taiwan, next to the world's largest coal-fired power plant. And I've seen over the years that I spent in Taiwan the impact of very dirty energy. And we need to be moving in the direction of cleaner sources as we move forward. So I would be looking for you to disapprove these increases and also to change in the net metering proposal. I think we could set a very clear example in Kentucky by taking an aggressive approach to the change to cleaner sources and to the jobs that come with installation for solar and other new forms of energy. We could be moving ahead. This, to me, feels like we're moving behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Apparently, I now have the magic number, and I'm going to try for Miss Virginia Lee again. If you are one of the callers who's called in, you need to hit *6 to unmute your phone. Okay. I'll continue down the list. Dr. Brian O'Rear.
Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Brian O'Rear. I'm at 4810 Dunbar Valley Road in Fisherville, Kentucky, 40023. I'm speaking in opposition to the change in net metering specifically, and the reason is the uncertainty that it introduces into the industry. I had a small business for about 9 years, sold it a couple of years ago, and very recently considered getting into the solar industry. As I looked around, I did my due diligence, it became obvious very clearly that this annual attempt by LG&E and KU to try to change the net metering introduces so much confusion and uncertainty that small businesses, people who are considering getting into this industry, end up accepting an awful lot of risk. I elected not to do it for that reason. I also have a solar array on my property, and we're part of the net metering system. So obviously if this passes, it's not going to affect me, but I think it's a terrible idea It's bad for businesses because the competition for newcomers into the business will be lower, and it's bad for consumers as well. Good, fair market competition helps consumers above all. The effects of changing the rate are twofold. First of all, the immediate effect would be fewer people will start putting solar on their roofs. That's not good for the environment. It's not good for the industry. And the second, of course, as I mentioned, the competition in the solar industry will decline, and that's not good. We're at a point now where solar companies are emerging into profitability, and there's some momentum going. By passing this, by implementing this rule, this change to net metering, all of that momentum goes away. At a very minimum, I would recommend that we wait at least 4 or 5 years. Allow the prices of batteries to come down, allow the price of solar to continue to come down, allow these companies to get their feet under them and to be more established. It'll be better for the consumers in the long run. Ultimately, I think LG&E and KU are going to have plenty of profitability through this, and everybody up and down the economic spectrum ought to do better. And so I'm recommending that we just delay this at a minimum of 5 years, put some certainty in the industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. That was a little delay there in turning my mic on. Bruce Webb.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, my name is Bruce Webb. I'm at 205 Chenault Road, Lexington, Kentucky, 40502. And I have a solar array on my house, and I also have a solar array on my business. I'm here to speak against the changes to the net metering. It is the nature of my business that we use quite a bit of energy. We have refrigeration demands, and we have put solar panels onto our business because it's a way for us to reduce the impact of the energy that we use. We've invested about $100,000 in solar panels. We've generated about 200 megawatts of energy and prevented the release of 150 metric tons of CO2 over the last 2.5 years. And this is, at no cost and to the benefit of KU and LG&E. So I think that, we need to be in the position of advocating for increased solar energy production. We trail badly some of our neighboring states, such as Virginia and North Carolina, in terms of our use of solar arrays. The changes to net metering would make it very unattractive to me as a business person to expand my investment in solar generating capacity. And we do have the capability of undertaking such an expansion. It escapes me as to why the energy generated from my solar panels should be less than the energy generated from KU's solar panels. I mean, it just seems fundamentally inequitable. And I guess what I find really disappointing is that it's regressive in terms of what we need to do in terms of increasing solar capacity and encouraging generation from as many sources as we can as we look towards, electrification of our transportation sector. Kentucky is positioned to increase its solar generation, and we really need to be building a regulatory framework that supports and encourages that. I am not a person that is inherently active politically. This is the first time I've spoken at a Public Service Commission gathering. And the reason I'm doing it is because it just seems just fundamentally unfair. And the Public Service Commission is our voice in that process. And so to the extent and impact that it has, I want to raise my voice and ask my representatives on the Public Service Commission to, to work for us and encourage LG&E and KU to come forward with policies that
just fundamentally unfair. And the Public Service Commission, is our voice in that process.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Webb. Lisa Satin? And reminder, if you're a caller and you've called in, you have to hit *6 to unmute your line. Okay. Denise O'Meara. Again, if you're calling in, that's *6 to unmute or to mute. Regina Murph. Gary Atkinson.
Can you hear me okay?
I can. Go ahead.
Gary Atkinson, 4595 Sonat Bridge Road, Danville, Kentucky, 40422. First of all, I want to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to express our views. I have been a solar owner now almost a year, and I certainly want to brag on Kentucky Utilities. I think they do a great job, and I understand that they've got to make money to stay in business, but there's a couple of things that I think they could do. First of all, we want to do it the fair way for them and us, and I think the net metering should stay at 1-to-1, but I have no problem with them raising the base rate, and not for all customers, maybe just for the solar customers, to possibly $20 on a base fee. I think that would be that way it kind of helps their infrastructure, the meters that they're having to put in for us. I think it would be the fair way. And I think most people, as long as they're trying to be fair about it, has no problem. We know we've got to progress. Our country is trying to lean towards solar, and if we cut this back to cut it back 75%, we're certainly going to have problems with people being able to afford it. It's not the most lucrative thing to do now, but I think it is the correct thing to do for our environment. I noticed that Kentucky Utilities spent $38 million at the E.W. Brown plant, and their reasoning for doing that was for climate change and a moral obligation. And I think that's why most of the private homeowners are doing this. For me, it was a moral obligation and a climate change, and we also own an electric car. The other thing, Kentucky Utilities actually benefits for people putting in solar during the summertime when the demand is high. We kind of help them keep their grid up and running, because when I'm producing more than I'm using, it's going to my neighbors, and it's not going 20, 30 miles down the road. I understand it probably goes to the house next to me on either side or across the road, and I just want to be fair about it. And we don't have to be a confrontational relationship. This is something we can all work together. It's just not the right time with the pandemic and everything that's going on to make these rash. I know they got to make money, and I have no problem with that. But I noticed California, and they passed and they may have already passed a new one, but it was under the NEM 2.0. They left their net metering on 101, but they did charge a base rate a little bit higher than what they had been doing to make it lucrative for them. And yet that helped people continue to install their solar panels. And I want to thank you all again for allowing me to express my opinion, and have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Farrell Adkins?
I'm Farrell Atkins. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I live at 641 Westport Road, apartment 12, Elizabethtown, Kentucky, and lived there for a very long time. I've never spoken at a commission hearing. I guess you could say that I'm self-employed, and I'm speaking against the flat rate increases because I think it will adversely affect people like me. I'm 65 years old, just got on Medicare last fall, which has increased my healthcare costs by about $200 a month. And I think it would be very difficult. My income has dropped considerably because of the pandemic. Business is down. And, I attempted, like many others in Kentucky, to get some unemployment benefits, which was totally futile because the system doesn't work. And I suspect that there's many people out there like me who had decreases in income and have not been able, and are unemployed and have not been able to get any kind of benefits to supplement them during this strange period that we're going through. I think it's the wrong time to be raising rates. I think they should wait until the pandemic subsides considerably, until people can go back to work. I know there's, speaking on behalf of other people, like people that work in the restaurant industry and so on, they don't make a lot of money to begin with. And I think it would be very difficult for them to have to add on an additional rate increase, and particularly a flat rate increase. I think that's totally unfair. I mean, if you're going to increase the rates, base it on use and not just charge everybody the same rate. Not everybody has the same amount of money, and certainly not now. So I don't think there should be any flat rate increase, and that's primarily what I'm speaking against.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins.
You're welcome.
Kay Beagle? Again, if you have called in, that's *6 to unmute.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, hi. My name is Kay Beckel. I live at 655 Boyers Chapel Road in Sadieville, Kentucky. I am calling in, I'm against the current proposed rate changes in the net metering rates. I do have solar array. We've had them for several years. It is quite expensive to install solar and have it up and going and have the permitting and all the things that make it safe and connected to the grid. And we do appreciate the grid and KU and everything, but we installed this because we felt like we needed to be part of, the things going on in the environment, try to make a change and decrease our, our bad energy use footprint. We're just big users. We feel that it is expensive now to install solar, and that if you change those net metering rates, there's going to be a lot of people that can't afford it. And I think that will take us backwards. I think if we want to be an independent state or independent in energy, independent country, I think that our country needs to move forward with solar and wind and any other ways to produce energy. I think that solar energy producers, private producers, add stability to the grid. I think at high use times, we're producing a lot of extra electricity and it goes under the grid. It doesn't cost them anything for us to send it that way. I do understand that there's a cost to keep the grid up and all the, the wires and everything and I see on my bills every month, I do have some set rates. I see, assistance fund charges and environmental surcharges and just basic service rates. So I know that some of that is built into my bill. I don't know how much of that covers, the delivery of our electricity off the grid. But I have a feeling that, that I don't think that they should get 75% of what we produce. I don't think I should pay that back on something that I've produced, that I've paid for and I've, we've built. So anyway, that's how I feel. I just feel that it's part of the stability of the grid, and I think it is good for the public. And if KU and LG&E are providing this service and it's supposed to be fair, then I think that it's better for everyone in the state to be able to produce some, add to the grid, and it just should be a fair service. It's not that they should be there needs to be competition. It can't be a monopoly. I guess that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Since we're hopping through these fairly quickly, if anyone else is out there listening to us on YouTube and would like to speak, you may request to do so by sending an email to psc.meeting@ky.gov. Be sure to include your name, address, and phone number. Okay. Thomas Clay.
Good afternoon. My name is Thomas Clay. My address is 917 Lily Creek Road, Louisville 40243. I represent a number of McDonald franchisees who are customers of LG&E on case number 2020-350. My clients have a common concern about LG&E billing practices, which I believe it's appropriate for the commission to consider before they act upon this request for a rate increase. And in order to do that, I have an expert here I would like to address the commission named Steve Marshall. He's president and CEO of Gazelle Power. It's an energy management company. And at this time, I would like to turn the floor over to Mr. Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. Clay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We have three significant issues to bring to the attention of the PSC board today. The first issue is fraud and theft, we believe, by LG&E and KU customers via fraudulent demand charges. The second issue is willful negligence with respect to LG&E, resulting in significant damage to facilities, infrastructure, and equipment due to voltages that greatly exceed specified requirements. The third issue is both fraudulent demand charges and willful negligence due to constant and ongoing intermittent power losses due to old, outdated, and faulty equipment. You will be hearing directly from three members of the public later on in this public meeting, who are also LG&E customers today with very specific examples of these issues. They're all currently present here with me, so we would ask that the PSC board would utilize this go-to meeting address for each of them. And those three individuals are Mr. Tim Brown, Ms. Ira Sauls, and Ms. Brittany Barnett. We're hopeful that our assumption is correct that the PSC board and staff are completely unaware of these issues, since nothing has been done to address these issues, which are both widespread and have been ongoing for a number of years. For the record, we have continuously addressed these issues with LG&E for years. It was not that long ago that demand charges by LG&E and Kentucky utilities represented a much smaller fraction of customer electric energy bills. Today, in many cases, LG&E demand charges represent greater than 50% of the total electric bill and will be even greater under the current rate structure if approved by the PSC board. We're an energy management conservation company that's been working for numerous commercial clients in Kentucky for a little over 5 years. One of the components of our business practice utilizes proprietary models and data analytics to evaluate current and historical energy usage, charges, power quality issues, and outages for our clients. As a result of these models and data analytics, we began to observe that both historical and current demand charges for our customers were identical for multiple months and many times during months of seasonal transition, when it would be impossible to have identical demand values. Initially, we communicated these issues with LG&E after every 2 or 3 months with the same identical demand charges, and LG would respond by saying that their readings were correct, their systems and controls were effective and would never have allowed incorrect charges, and therefore no credit would be issued. As a result of LG&E's adversarial position, we asked one of our customers who had several of her store locations with historically identical demand charges from LG&E to not report identical demand charges when they occurred, and that we would wait for LG&E and their systems to catch the problem. We waited 6 months and never heard from LG&E. I want to reiterate this point. LG&E utilized the exact same high demand value for this customer for 6 months and never identified these issues, nor contacted our customer. Their systems do not work. After 6 months of overcharges, which resulted in thousands of additional dollars in charges, our customer said that they wanted us to contact LG&E so that it would stop. We communicated to LG&E via email and did not get a response for another month, and even then, the next monthly bill had the same identical demand charge. After several months, LG&E reluctantly admitted that they were incorrect and issued a credit. However, as stated previously, LG&E used the highest historical values when determining credit because the actual demand was far less due to the new equipment and technologies installed and were not representative of the current demand for this location. In other words, LG&E got to select the highest value when calculating the credit because they stated that the PSC board had approved this methodology. Even with this credit, LG&E still significantly overcharged our client. I want to restate this point. LG&E has maintained that fraud and theft via demand overcharges is not possible due to their systems in place. We proved that this is not the case. LG&E maintained, even after we brought this to their attention, that the value for a customer for 6 months of the same demand charge, that it was due to employee error, and this was an isolated case. Based upon our database for our customers, we performed a statistical evaluation, and our estimates, which we believe are very conservative, show that approximately 17% of LG&E customers have been historically and currently victims of fraud and theft due to fraudulent demand charges. As an example, we have McDonald's franchisees who operate between 4 and 7 stores, and several have 2 or more stores that have this same issue. As another example, one of the largest high-rise condominium complexes in Louisville has the same issue with identical demand values for multiple months, and LG&E has still not contacted this customer. I want to restate this point again. We conservatively estimate that 17% of LG&E/KU customers have been harmed and are continuing to be harmed by fraud, theft via demand overcharges. The fact that the PSC board is apparently unaware of this issue, yes.
If you could wrap up, you've gone over time.
I have one paragraph and I will be done. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. The fact that the PSC board is apparently unaware of this issue speaks to the incredible difficulty of any customer to know that they have been victims of fraud or theft. First of all, most customers would not have the requisite knowledge to understand the complex billing structure as referred by a previous commenter that is utilized as approved by the PSC board. Second of all, we would estimate that no one is tracking monthly demand values to even know if there is a problem to begin with. In fact, our company accidentally discovered this issue as a result of our proprietary models and data analytics. In conclusion, we are assuming in good faith that the PSC board and their employees have no knowledge of the fraud and theft that has been ongoing to LG&E customers for years and is still continuing. We also believe that the PSC board and their employees would want to ensure that any fraud or theft would be uncovered and that all customers would be affected, that they would be compensated. Thank you for allowing us to comment.
Mr. Marshall, would you give your address, please?
It's the same address as Mr. Thomas Clay, as he provided.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Jason Worms.
Hi, my name is Jason Worms. I live at 433 Pickett Drive in Fort Wright, Kentucky, 41011. I am a a solar user. I have solar array on my house, and I would like to advocate against LG&E's proposal for the solar rate reimbursement changes. As has been said previously, and I'd like to echo the comment, a lot of planning and the math that goes in for us individual homeowners into adding solar arrays onto our properties is the repayment time frame and how long it's going to take, and as well as how much energy we can generate. If LG&E wants, or other Kentucky utilities want to continuously change the goalposts or change the reimbursement rates, it is going to have a very chilling effect on people who want to do their part to contribute to better energy usage and more environmentally friendly energy usage by limiting their options to make that a usable thing for them. It also hurts our commercial owners who have, in many cases, larger areas that they can devote to solar generation capacity, and again, continues to hurt the overall energy grid in Kentucky. Solar energy in particular has its maximum generation capacity during our times of highest demand volume. So LG&E and other Kentucky utilities actually get more of a benefit from that because they don't have to tax their own power generation capacity and their own grid as much as would be the case if, say, the solar energy were to be generated during off-peak demand hours. So I just want to reiterate that that the reimbursement rate should be kept as high as possible for solar users that are not full power plants, because this is the type of energy generation that we want to encourage. It offsets higher demand times and is helpful to the grid on an overall basis. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Charlotte Whitaker?
Yes, I'm on here. I'm on here by phone.
Go ahead, we can hear
Are you ready for me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm Charlotte Whitaker. I'm president of AARP Kentucky, and I represent 430,000 members in the Commonwealth. Tell the PSC where you are and who you are, where I'm from. I'm from Ohio County, and I'm happy to be on this call. I appreciate you letting me be on this call. Many of our members are lower on fixed income. Others have been diversely affected by the pandemic. The amount of the proposed rate increase is simply unacceptable at this trying time. Further, the purpose to raise the already too high customer charge for both electric and natural gas is also a big problem for our members. All such charges are already too high. They make controlling your energy bill more difficult. Lower use customers will see an even higher bill to impact due to the rate design change. AARP does not agree that the current customer charges are too low, nor do we agree with creative cost study mechanisms that recover new costs in this manner. AARP believes the customer charge should recover metering and billing costs only and not be inflated with these other costs. LG&E and KU proposes increasing utility bills for residential customers by over 9% for gas and nearly 12% for electric. The Kentucky Public Service Commission should consider these requests too high and definitely unneeded. LG&E and KU, as part of the request, also increase the customer charges, which make controlling your energy bill more difficult. Utility rates are an essential pocketbook issue for people like me over the age of 50 and their families, many of whom struggle to balance paying utility bills and other household expenses, along with buying food and pricey medicine. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to comment on this very important issue. We appreciate being with you today. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you, Ms. Whitaker. Annette Hines? Again, if you're a caller, that's *6 to unmute. Okay. Josh Frederick. Josh Frederick. Okay. Bill Slater.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead.
Great, appreciate being on here. The very first speaker, Gene Christensen, emphasized the environment as, the motivational impetus for installing solar and preserving solar. And that's exactly what Eileen and I did about 11 years ago. And, we'd heard about the Big Branch mine disaster of 29 miners and unforgettable tragedy. Also, the climate emergency that we're in at the moment. And one thing, I was I'm certainly not an expert in economics. And I know, Dr. Matthews, you have an advanced degree, a PhD, I believe, in economics, and you understand circular flow economics and the role of externalities and spillover effects. And when I took Economics 101, I looked at spillover effects and I thought, my goodness, why doesn't anybody pay for this? And so now being the head of the Public Services Commission, it would seem that one in the true service to the public would want to account for spillover effects. And one way to do that is to preserve net metering at least 1-to-1. Personally, I believe it's worth 2-to-1 solar to dirty energy. If you offer two types of energy, on the one hand, dirty energy, and on the other hand, clean energy, we could ask the simple question, which one is worth more? And I think we should, know the answer to that. And as far as spillover effects, one need only go back to the year of 2000 and look at Martin County. And the PSC has been involved in the water issues there, trying to set rates and so on and so forth coming forward. So we have a very valuable energy system in net metering where we can confront these environmental disasters and deal with the true value of solar energy. And so to devalue solar independence is, it seems to me, has been said by many people, from Dan Nolet to Brian, Dr. Brian, and Bruce Webb, and so forth. To devalue that would be to go in the wrong direction. And now LG&E, KU, and other providers, I'm under Bluegrass Energy, and they do a tremendous job, and that's a great bunch of people over there. But yet, to say that we use the utilities infrastructure is a red herring. It really is. We use a few feet of wire. The power that we produce goes into our neighborhoods, and all of those people pay LG&E and KU. And so there you have it. And so to say, I've heard this, my goodness, I never thought we were going to be cut back by 75%. But some of the speakers here have said up to 75% cut. Now, I know we'll be grandfathered in, those of us who have solar. And again, my address is Clean Acres Farm. We call it Clean Acres because it's clean energy, all wind and solar, at 595 Cog Hill Lane, Harrodsburg, 40330. And I feel very passionate about solar being preserved. And I know personally a number of people who work in the industry who are on pins and needles about their jobs. And these are good paying jobs. And if you look at job growth, there's another real benefit. And, the economy has been referenced, but now here's another very good benefit. we need to pay 20 cents a kilowatt hour. We need, for solar, we need to have 1-for-1, and anything over that, we get 20 cents, because that's what it's worth. That's what it's worth all the way through. So those are my comments, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slater. And you anticipated my question of your address. I appreciate that. Deborah
Well,
Novgorodov? Apologies
Yes.
to your mother.
No, not at all.
All your
You did very
ancestors.
Got it. Good afternoon. My name is Deborah Novgorodov. I live at 2114 Douglas Boulevard in Louisville 40205. So I am a Louisville resident. I'm also a shareholder in PPL and a member of the Shareholders for Energy Democracy Group. And I really appreciate being able to speak here today. My first time also at anything like this. I want you to know that I continue to be truly outraged by LG&E's proposal that is in front of the Public Service Commission. Broadly speaking, LG&E is out of step with social and environmental concerns of our times, out of step with responsible corporate policy and what so many other companies are saying and doing to support justice issues, and apparently oblivious to the needs and concerns of their customers. I understand that an agreement has been reached with Louisville Metro Council but needs to be approved by the PSC. Thus, I'll go ahead and speak my concerns about the original proposal. Let me begin with the social injustices inherent in LG&E's proposal. A rate increase of this magnitude would be a tremendous burden, as others have said, at any time to middle and lower income people. But while we're living through a pandemic that's deeply affected the economy and so many have lost livelihoods, it's morally wrong. While the overall rate increase is tempered in this apparent agreement, it's still high, and it will be difficult for many families to absorb into their budgets. My second point, on top of the sheer magnitude of the potential rate increase, the way in which it was originally structured is unjust. The proposed increase significantly raises the fixed monthly fee equally on all income levels, regardless of the size of the home or of energy use. This is simply unfair. A single parent barely making ends meet and living in a small apartment, for example, would face the same fixed fee increase as someone who lives in a mansion in a wealthy suburban neighborhood. You know, really, what could possibly justify that kind of rate increase? Apparently, Louisville Metro has agreed, and I hope that the PSC does as well. Thirdly, an increase in fixed costs of energy. Again, in the original proposal, it's not only socially unjust, it's environmentally unfriendly. This kind of rate calculation is not sensitive to an individual's efforts to reduce their energy consumption, since such a large portion of the cost is fixed, leaving consumers with little incentive to conserve energy. And fourthly, this leads me to the other serious environmental injustice in this proposal. And you've heard from solar panel owners about this. But, you know, this one is still on the table, apparently, and LG&E's proposal contains yet another forceful blow to Kentucky's solar industry. Their proposal drastically reduces the incentive for homeowners to install solar panels, since the time for payback is dramatically lengthened. The rate of return is so little. The science tells us that we need to wean ourselves from fossil fuels, yet LG&E is cementing Kentucky's reliance on such fuel with this proposal. Please, we really all need to wake up to the environmental impact of our energy use and to put in programs and policies that support solar. Since LG&E is a monopoly, there's little except the PSC to keep it in check. I beg the PSC to deny LG&E's proposal. LG&E is turning a substantial profit without these measures. I say that as a PPL shareholder, as a customer, as a citizen concerned for the well-being of fellow Kentuckians, including those with less financial means and those in the solar industry. And I say this as a nana with grandchildren. My 5 little granddaughters need us to act on climate change today by supporting, not destroying, incentives for solar power. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. Wallace McMullen.
Thank you. I'm Wallace McMullen, residing at 4324 Dover Road in Louisville, Kentucky. I am a shareholder of PPL, the holding company of these monopoly utility companies we are discussing. I think the impact of their proposals is negative for our community. Their shareholder report says they had revenue of $7.6 billion in the past year, with a profit of $418 million extracted from Kentucky. In the midst of our struggle with the pandemic, and during reports of over 28,000 unpaid accounts serving 50,000 people, LG&E makes what I would call an unreasonable and rapacious application to extract more revenue from our community. I have to start with this somewhat personal observation. I have attended and spoken at the public hearings for every rate increase proposed by LG&E since early 2015. In 2015, the mandatory connection fee, or basic service fee as a monopoly company, as we misleadingly call it, as it provides no service. Anyway, the mandatory electric fee in 2015 was $10.25 a month, or $129 a year. Now it's $1.10 a day just to be connected for gas and electricity, or $401 a year. You honorable commissioners have approved this 300% increase. And LG&E is brazenly applying to have the mandatory fee raised to $474 a year. $474 with no gas or electricity provided just to be connected. This is wrong. It promotes a rate structure that preys on lower income customers and functions with a racist bias in Louisville. It concentrates charging the dense lower income neighborhoods, mostly black, the most, and it charges the more dispersed higher income neighborhoods, predominantly white, proportionately less. It's taking from the poor to the advantage of the rich. These mandatory meter connection fees were originally justified as the cost of reading the meter and sending a bill, as ARP mentioned. I believe that perspective would reasonably justify a charge of about $7 a month. It does not at all justify the charge of $1.30 a day, about $40 a month, or $474 a year that LG&E has applied for. It also doesn't justify the current mandatory charge of $400 a year that this monopoly is getting. LG&E wants the commission to approve rates which are hostile to homeowners and small customers installing small solar systems. They have applied to have net metering rates of rooftop solar customers excess daytime power greatly tilted in LG&E's favor, asking for small systems that generate a few kilowatt hours a day and get the same level of compensation credit as large power plants selling millions of kilowatt hours to large transmission networks. This rate structure would have the effect of stifling competition, dissuading customers who might otherwise invest in solar panels, as we've heard tonight, and also killing jobs in Kentucky's solar industry. LG&E claims it should pay its solar customers only approximately the wholesale rate it pays large power plants. However, wholesale power usually requires utilities to build hugely expensive transmission lines over many miles to get that power to its customers. Sending excess daytime power from a rooftop solar customer like myself to a next door neighbor requires no additional equipment, and the neighbor gets charged the full retail rate for that power, while LG&E gets the benefit of free generating capacity. Observe the companies applied for 10% profit margin or return on equity in the time of a pandemic. This to me seems excessive, unreasonable, and unfair. I reference again the reported profit of $418 million for the past year during the progress of the pandemic, when Kentucky had about 900,000 people out on unemployment. The unemployed members of our community are having to scrape and scrimp to get by. At a time like this, the reasonable strategy would be for the customer to accept a brief reduction in the rate of return, not trying to take more money out of our community. I also urge you to disallow the smart meters or AMI proposal that the company has made. The existing meters are anticipated to work well for another decade. The company submits that savings can be realized from studying information on day after graphs and other transmissions from smart meters through the internet. Their argument falls apart in the reality that many low-income customers, especially in Black neighborhoods, don't have good internet access. Please disallow this expenditure and save us customers $300 or $400 million. LG&E should function as a community resource. It feels like they are now operating as the agent of an out-of-state multinational corporation, trying to take revenue from Kentucky regardless of the impact on our community in this time of pandemic. Please regulate them accordingly. Thank you for listening to my comments.
Thank you, Mr. McMullen. Mary Roxanne Sturdivant?
Hello, that's me.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name is Roxanne Sturdivant. I live at 3712 Trail Ridge Road in Louisville, 40241. I am both a customer of LG&E and a PPL shareholder. And I would like to agree with everything that's been said so well, so I will keep my remarks short. I ask that the Public Service Commission approve of the settlement that the Jefferson County Attorney has reached with LG&E. The negotiated settlement protects ratepayers from increases in flat fees that would disproportionately affect low-income households. It gives needed assistance to those households in proportion to the 7% increase in electricity rates and promises to hold off on asking for further rate increases until July 1 of 2025. All of these are measures that are in tune with the times and the needs of our community. It positions PPL as a good corporate citizen instead of an absentee landlord who might be trying to extract the most and provide the least. Approval of the settlement also demonstrates that the Public Service Commission is looking out for the financial welfare of our citizens against the interests of a utility company that is now owned by an out-of-state corporation. Everyone wins. I also ask that the PSC further protect our citizens by helping LG&E to transition to clean energy. The immediate issue is fair payment for rooftop solar. There's no avoiding the fact that the world needs to stop adding greenhouse gases to our environment by burning fossil fuels. Giving Kentuckians who make the investment to buy and install rooftop solar panels helps all of us to breathe a little easier. And electricity generated by LG&E, those investors should be rewarded for their efforts. It's unfair to charge 10 cents per kilowatt hour for electricity generated by LG&E and only pay 2.2 cents for the same amount of energy generated by a householder. LG&E, like all electric utilities, will have to convert to power generation through clean energy to help the United States achieve zero emissions by 2050. According to Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft Corporation, this is the goal recommended by scientists to keep the planet from disastrously overheating. LG&E has asked for proposals to replace 3 coal-burning power plants at the end of their economic lives. The first of these to be replaced is the Mill Creek plant in Jefferson County. When reviewing these proposals, I asked the PSC to go green for the good of Kentucky. To summarize, please approve the negotiated settlement to be, please approve the negotiated settlement. Be fair to rooftop solar providers by making their investments pay off, and guide Kentucky into a cleaner future by prioritizing clean energy as our coal-burning power plants are retired. Thank you for your time, and thank you for everyone listening.
Thank you for your comments. Steve Ricketts? Again?
Thanks, Commissioner Matthews. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Steve Ricketts at 214 Kennedy Avenue, Louisville, Kentucky, 40206. I am a private owner of solar. I'm also the owner of Solar Energy Solutions, Kentucky's largest solar install company with something like 1,500 net metered systems under operation, so I have a little familiarity with this subject. I'm not going to rehash on a lot of the very justified comments the other people have made. I want to address one specific subject and actually ask for PSC study and action on it, and that is the way in which LG&E and KU are handling current net metering applications during the process of your study. I'd like to quote from LG&E's submission document of 25th of November last year when they put in their paperwork for this campaign, just one brief paragraph, which is LG&E is proposing a new net metering rate schedule, rider NMS2, and renaming its existing rider NMS to be NMS1. NMS1, or the current schedule, will serve all eligible electric generating facilities for which customers have submitted an application for net metering service before the effective date of rates established in this proceedings. In layman's terms, if you get in your net metering paperwork before you and your colleagues produce a judgment, you are grandfathered into the current net metering system at the 1-to-1 rate. That is not what our utilities are doing. Our utilities have decided to go off book and have actually implemented a policy of only allowing solar arrays into the current net metering system at the point of activation, not the point of application. That is a 3 to 4 month difference and effectively takes a large swath of people who would like to go solar out of consideration, because who wants to put down $20,000 or $30,000 on building a system when they're not sure if it's going to get built in time before the PSC actually kind of comes to their conclusions. We are seeing significant defections of people from contracts. It's significantly worrying the 40 people in our workforce, and we're seeing a lot of people decide not to go solar right now because the utilities have decided to implement their own policy for net metering application. This is not just a theoretical kind of point of view. I applied to extend my own home solar array by 4.4 kilowatts for a system that is going to be activated at the end of the summer. It was approved, but only under net metering kind of 2. By the undertaking they gave to the PSC on November 25th, this should have been approved under net metering kind of 1, because the paperwork was submitted in time. So hundreds of potential solar owners and solar business owners are being damaged by LG&E deciding to rip up the rule book and do it their own way. So my request to the PSC, and this is incredibly urgent, is to respectfully ask you to look at this in very short order and establish why LG&E and KU is not applying the net metering application process they undertook to apply last November, and taking hundreds of people out of the potential to get solar before you make your judgment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ricketts. Marcus Winkler?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Marcus Winkler. I live at 11711 Hazelwood Road in Louisville, Kentucky. Here we go. I'm also serve as the District 17 representative on the Louisville Metro Council. Each year, Louisville Metro pays an average of $13 million to LG&E for its services. Of its $13 million annual expense, Metro pays approximately $5.5 million for streetlights. Street lighting is a public service that creates value to all taxpayers. Even ratepayers who live outside Lexington and Louisville benefit from street lighting when they visit those cities. Rapid conversion to street lights to LED, as Metro stated in its expert testimony, would substantially benefit the entire community, both environmentally and economically. In addition, the attempt to shift more payments to fixed charges harms lower-income people and senior citizens and discourages energy conservation. We strongly oppose any increases to fixed charges. These are payments our citizens pay no matter how much, if any, energy they use. It is a needless expense in these difficult times and one that will be acutely felt by those who are already facing difficulty. Net metering rates, as proposed by LG&E, will discourage more solar when we should be moving in the direction of more, not less, environmentally sound energy policies. Net metering will affect our residents' ability to recover for environmentally favorable energy resources that are produced and paid for by the customer. As the council indicated when it passed resolution number 009-2020 last year, we believe it's very important for LG&E to start the process to move towards greener energy options. In order to reach these goals, the Commonwealth, Louisville Metro, and LG&E need to begin planning process now. We encourage increased support for the Low-Income Energy Housing Assistance Program, LIHEAP, and other efforts to support citizens in need, including reducing deposits and debt waivers for reconnection. Finally, many of our small businesses are struggling to keep their doors open, much less thrive. Maintaining operations in the current climate is a precarious situation where even the smallest adjustment can have consequences. A significant increase in the cost of gas or electric further tips the scales against these business owners, hurting them and those they employ in the process. We appreciate the settlement that's been proposed with LG&E. We encourage the PSC to approve that settlement. We think it's a step in the right direction. We would ask for additional consideration regarding the net metering issue, as people have eloquently spoken about tonight. We believe that's a critical issue related to our transition to cleaner energy and one that benefits consumers. We appreciate your time, consideration, and attention to this matter. And please know that it's important to each and every citizen within the Commonwealth. We're counting on you to reach a fair and equitable decision in this consequential case and urge your support for the settlement that's been reached. Thank you for your time this evening, and thank you for your service to our community.
Thank you. Tim Brown.
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. So, Tim Brown, I'm with Sun Properties, 917 Lily Creek Road, Louisville, Kentucky. So I understand the commission's role is to ensure a safe and reliable service, and I just wanted to talk briefly about the reliability that I've got one example of that I believe is a much bigger problem generally with LG&E. So I'm a partner with Sun Properties, and we manage about 1 million square feet of commercial property around Louisville. We've got a building downtown that's a 76,000 square foot medical office building at 501 East Broadway. And over the last few years, we've had a lot of problem with incorrect voltage at that building, and it's basically been frying our HVAC systems and lighting systems. And LG&E a couple of years ago changed a couple of the transformers as a result of the bad power that we were receiving. And now, 2 years later, we're still in the same situation where we are faced with having replaced HVAC systems, costing tens of thousands of dollars, and we are still seeing spikes and surges and too high voltage coming into our building. So it's I understand that a lot of people are having this issue as well as a result of poor, old, and outdated transformers that don't seem to be getting fixed by LG&E in a proper fast time. So that's kind of where I am. So I just wanted to make that point, and I know Mr. Marshall here is going to talk some more about that. But thank you to the Commission.
Just to add briefly to what Tim shared, to give you specifics, this facility, we were retained about 2.5 years ago to perform an extensive audit. As a result, discovered that they were being provided electricity at levels far greater than 126 volts and were constantly experiencing intermittent and short power losses. After extensive communications with LG&E over a year's time, LG&E finally acknowledged that they were providing voltages in excess of 126 volts and that they would replace some of the transformers. Unlike another example that we'll talk about a little bit later with Miss Brittany, in this case, the problem has not gone away. In fact, recently, under significant expense, Mr. Brown's company has installed significant and spent significant resources for the installation of LED lights, new HVAC systems, etc. Recently, they've had some damage to those LED lights and new HVAC systems, and they had an electrician come into the facility to examine and check the voltages, which were excessive, far above the 126 volts, and stated that they would cause significant damage. As a result, the providers of that equipment and the people that installed it have refused to cover anything on a warranty basis because of that. So based upon our database, I want to come back to this. We've performed a statistical evaluation, and our estimates, which we believe also are conservative, show that approximately 15% of LG&E KU customers have been historically and currently victims of having voltages. We think it's willful negligence because the voltages are significantly greater than 126 volts. I want to restate that point again. We conservatively believe that about 15 to 16% of LG&E customers have been harmed by willful negligence by LG&E by providing voltages greater than required specifications. In this specific case, we had asked them 2.5 years before to address the problem. We still have extremely high voltages. We don't believe that the PSC board is aware of this and that the significant increase or the numbers of potential customers that could be affected by this. So we just want to make sure and bring that to your attention. We're confident that LG&E is not monitoring the voltages being supplied to customers, and that's evidenced by 15% of the customers that we've encountered. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Angela, well, actually, I've been told that Mr. Frederick is now available.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me this time?
I can.
Thank you for coming back to me. My name is Josh Frederick. I live at 8302 Tolles Lane in Louisville, Kentucky. I am a solar installer. For the past 3 years, I've been running my own business here out of Louisville called Empower Solar. First, I want to address the overall rate increase proposed by LG&E by saying I don't think it's a good time with the pandemic and all the hardship it's caused to be raising people's bills. And like so many others have said, I think if you are going to raise the bills, you should raise it on a per kilowatt hour basis rather than on a fixed fee basis. You know, we need to be sending, market signals to people to be conserving energy and helping out those people, who live on fixed incomes and turn down their air conditioning in order to help save with bills. Now about the net metering part of the case, now this proposed change would have a huge impact on my business. Most residential solar projects would be unviable under the proposed changes, leading me to pretty much shut down what I do. I hope that LG&E and the PSC are taking the time to study and quantify the benefits to the grid that net metering provides. For example, solar works best in the summer when it's sunny, when people are running their air conditioners, and that helps to reduce peak demands when energy is most expensive to the utility. Also, as a distributed source of generation, solar helps to boost voltage at the lines, which decreases line losses, which makes the grid more efficient, more reliable. As the last speaker was talking about not getting exactly the voltage required, it might help to have some distributed generation on his line. These are direct benefits that affect the cost of electricity for everyone. There are also indirect benefits that I hope the PSC will consider. Rooftop solar brings economic development to our communities. When I build a solar system, it adds wealth to the community, both in the form of energy from the sun and in the form of money, investment from the lenders who create the financing for these projects. That wealth goes to my customers, of course, as energy savings. It also goes to me and my employees and my subcontractors as wages. It goes to both local vendors and out-of-state vendors for the parts and tools that I use, and it goes to the state in the form of sales tax. All that wealth circulates and compounds within the community. I also want to mention the public health benefits of emission-free electricity generation. All ratepayers benefit from cleaner air to breathe. Here in Kentucky, we have one of the most polluting mixes of electricity generation in the country. I think that only West Virginia and Wyoming rank worse than us on that score. I believe that if you accounted for all these benefits that we can get from distributed generation through rooftop solar, they would more than make up for any of the lost revenue for LG&E. Finally, I want to comment on the issue of the so-called cost shifts or cross subsidies that LG&E has brought up. If there is indeed a cross subsidy from the solar customers to non-solar customers, it is surely less than the cross subsidies that rural ratepayers enjoy at the expense of urban ratepayers, or that homeowners enjoy at the expense of apartment dwellers. I think that if LG&E is concerned with cross subsidies, then these are the ones they should be prioritizing, as they're so much more pervasive than solar. And I'd also like to agree with what Steve Ricketts said a few minutes ago. As a solar contractor, it's been nerve-wracking dealing with these shifting deadlines from LG&E. They told us at first that we just had to have net metering agreements by a certain date, and now we have to have finished installed by a certain date. And for me and my customers, who are putting a lot of money into these projects, it's making our lives difficult right now. And I would really appreciate it if LG&E would go back to the original, stated deadline of having the agreement end by a certain date rather than the installation finished.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is William Wheeler. Damn. My name is William Wheeler.
Angela Renee Rowe. Jerry Willis. Brittany Barnett.
Hi there, I am Brittany Barnett, McDonald's franchisee. Address is 917 Lily Creek Road, Louisville, Kentucky, 40243. I am, as I stated, a McDonald's franchisee, and my restaurant had repeatedly over multi-year periods of time, we've complained to LG&E about our ongoing damage to equipment, lights, motors, HVAC equipment, electronics, and cooking equipment. McDonald's franchisees have the ability to compare maintenance and repair expenses between numerous stores and thereby determining we had a problem. We were retained by our energy company a little over 4 years ago, and they performed an extensive audit on our equipment. As a result, we discovered that we were being provided electricity at levels far greater than 126 volts, and that they were consistently experiencing intermittent and short duration of power loss in our restaurant. After extensive communications with LG&E over a year's time, LG&E finally acknowledged that the transformer was very old and outdated, greater than 30 years old, and it was providing voltages in excess of 126 volts, and that the transformer did not have the ability to adjust the voltage. LG&E replaced the transformer, main line, and upgraded the equipment at the substation a little over 2 years ago at our request, after many years of arguing about it. This store has now seen our maintenance and repair expenses drop approximately 50%, and our demand usage charges are now lower as much as 40%. I'd now like to let Steve Marshall, our energy company representative, take the opportunity to provide more details about our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. The first thing, we had mentioned three things at the very beginning of this meeting. One was the issue of actual fraudulent demand charges. The second issue was with respect to damage to facilities because of excessive voltages. The third has to do with willful negligence related to the constant and ongoing intermittent power issues. Brittany just explained in this case, after a significant period of time, about 4.5 years, when the right equipment, transformer, the power line, and then some of the other reclosers and other equipment at the local substation, all of a sudden this store now has no problems. Their M&R budget, which is maintenance and repair, has dropped dramatically. Their cost for energy usage, which means they're using less energy, is dramatically lower. The point I wanted to make on this particular issue is with respect to the voltage. The increased voltages, not only do they damage equipment, but we believe that LG&E, Kentucky Utilities, knows that the infrastructure throughout most of the United States is very old. But when that is not dealt with and customers spend millions of dollars to rebuild, put in a new McDonald's or build new facilities with new HVAC or new equipment, if the voltages coming in are excessive, that actually can destroy or significantly reduce the life of that equipment. So our concern again is when we did that statistically, looking at all of our customers, we determined that approximately 15% or more of those customers are experiencing voltages that are significantly higher. And I would go to so far to say that most customers probably don't even know to look at their voltage, probably don't hire. And this is, I'm not trying to sell anybody my services. I'm fine. The issue is that LG&E should be quantifying what the voltages are and making sure that within the required specifications. And if they know that they're not, then I would argue that that is negligence on their part. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Ira Sauls.
Here. Good evening, and thank you for hearing me. My name is Ira Sauls. The address is 917 Lily Fort Road, Louisville, Kentucky 40243. And I too am a McDonald's franchise owner with 7 locations. After hearing about Brittany's success, you know, because we talk to each other, I said, oh my goodness, I'm experiencing the same problems. Let me get this consultant that's working for you to help me resolve some of my issues. Well, lo and behold, there's a multitude of issues which he has talked about. And the one I want to talk about in particular that's really egregious is that I was charged the same demand bill for 6 months in a row. Now, as business owners, for all the business owners and homeowners and anyone on the call, studying your LG&E bill is not the main thing that we do. We're busy trying to take care of the other things that we have to do in order to run our business or our lives. So I'm so thankful that I have this outside company that's looking at it saying, wow, your bill has been the same for 6 months. This is through season changes and through the fact that during the pandemic, our lobbies have been only open for takeout. This particular McDonald's has a huge play place that has not been in use. So we've turned power off to that play place, and yet I'm being charged the same bill 6 months in a row. And then when we've brought this up to LG&E, they denied it, they denied it, they denied it. Finally, they said, oh, it was a human error. And it's just ridiculous. When we talk about the power interruptions, whatever you want to call them, there are power interruptions, the equipment goes off. Then the equipment all comes back on at once, the demand charge goes up, and then your bill for the month is based on that spike in the demand due to power to their old faulty equipment. And then you can't get your frappe. Or our customers, we're losing not only cost for repairing equipment, but we're losing customers because when customers come to your restaurant and can't get what they want because the equipment is down. And my most recent example is it blew out the computer that runs my register systems. You can't run a business without your registers working. So I'm extremely frustrated. I've learned a lot listening to all the other presenters. The way that they want to charge us is ridiculous as far as the way they want to bill. LG&E needs to come up and update their outdated equipment and be fair to the customers that pay their bills. I'd like to give Steve a chance to maybe more eloquently state this. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Ira. I'll just try to summarize real quick. This has to do with intermittent power outages. We've contacted LG&E. I'm going to try to make this in 2 minutes to be respectful of the time of everybody on this. We've contacted LG&E repeatedly. Yes?
Go ahead, just
Oh,
wrap it
okay,
up.
I thought
There are people who have only been able to speak 5 minutes, and you're on your 15th, so.
LG&E defines an outage. In a letter recently from LG&E to our client, to our customer, Ira, they define an outage as any loss of momentary service, referring to anything as a momentary, which is less than 5 minutes, and outage is greater than 5 minutes. The reliability for our clients' franchisees, according to LG&E, said that they reviewed this in detail and said that based on the last few years, the circuits that provide power to most of your clients' stores average well under 1 outage per year. I think I would tell you 3 to 4 a week might be more accurate. The point that we're trying to make here is that with the outdated equipment, whether it be a transformer, whether it be any type of recloser in a substation, whatever equipment, when there are lots and lots of what we refer to, or what LG&E refers to as momentaries, those momentaries mean that the power goes off maybe for a minute, maybe for 30 seconds, but when the power comes back on, all the circuits are energized in those stores, which means that everything comes on all at once. So if you have systems in place to reduce demand and reduce energy usage, it's defaulted and it's basically bypassed by that intermediary or that short-term loss of power, what LG&E refers to as a momentary. Therefore, it's our argument that they don't have an incentive to replace much of that equipment, because if there are lots of momentaries, if there are lots of short-term power outages that result in spikes and increases in demand, then LG increases their revenue, they increase their profits with no additional work or energy provided. I'm sure that the PSC is aware of the fact that LG&E, like every other utility in this country, has old and outdated equipment that needs to be replaced, and that's a whole nother discussion. Our point is simply that if those occurrences occur, LG&E has told us that, in fact, to quote, they stated manually that they reset the demand on each meter each month. LG&E recently told us that sometimes the meter readers forget to do this, or in other cases, they write down the wrong values. If they do that, for example, you heard from Vic Topper last Wednesday how LG&E claimed that their meter reader incorrectly recorded the demand value. Then 4 months after the fact, LG&E issued a revised reading that resulted in an additional $1,200 for his demand bill. This is my last, I'm done, 2 sentences. How can we or LG&E prove or disprove that they are right, especially since the demand is supposed to reset monthly? How do we know that that demand is correct? And I would go so far as to say that everyone listening today probably doesn't look at their demand values on a monthly basis and track them to see if they're the same. Thank you very much.
And to clarify for everyone listening, the speakers who signed up gave Mr. Marshall the rest of their time. I know there's some concern that maybe he got too much time, but the 3 folks who had signed up as members of the public gave part of their time to Mr. Marshall. Rick Berry?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes. Maybe turn your volume up a little?
All right. That's probably too loud, but we'll try it. Okay.
No.
Just a bunch.
You're still faint.
Now, let's try this.
Perfect.
Bunch of points to make. I would agree that there could be a reduction in the net metering amount. I would not suggest more than a 25% discount from retail now. Monthly connection fee, the fixed fee of $15 to $25. I think somebody else earlier mentioned $20 would probably be reasonable, although it is a regressive charge. Future charges or changes on charges from fossil fuels to renewables needs to be considered in the strategic direction that PSC takes with the utilities that it regulates. I'm not sure that you're looking at long-term, but only at the tactical options. Competitiveness globally is something that I think PSC should look at with the utilities. And if the net metering is reduced too much, then Kentucky's competitiveness will go down. Commercial establishments, industrial establishments have yet to come online with solar. Wind is not real viable in Kentucky, but solar is. And I think that you will be cutting a lot of companies off at the knees if you reduce the net metering more than 25%. Domestic and local production of renewable technologies should be encouraged by the sale of electricity to the grid, in other words, PV. And as battery technology improves, the ability of the grid to deliver to customers 24/7 will be improved. Make sure that that is a strategic part of the goals. Off-grid may be more attractive with a reduction in the rate of net metering. That will remove customers from the utilities, and I would suggest that people who are already doing net metering may add additional capacity as battery power increases and prices drop. The move will become more aggressive, and they will be cutting their own throats if that happens. I did need to give you my name and address, Rick Berry, 310 Ravenswood Road in Clearfield, Kentucky, 40313. I am speaking mostly about KU. I am actually on Grayson Utility right now, but I've been on KU in the past, and they're right next door to me, literally. Renewables need to be encouraged for commercial and industrial customers via net metering. Without that price differential, then I think that you will be discouraging that. There are well over 100 square miles of parking lots available for net metering installations, and that can have a significant impact on Kentucky's economy. The PSC needs to establish policies for progressive energy pricing, not regressive. Robust grid is required. The Eastern Kentucky disaster this winter with utilities is a prime example of what is not happening right now. And I know that the territory in this part of the world is more difficult than, say, in the metro areas or in other parts of the state. But a robust grid is needed, therefore profits for LG&E and KU are needed. Wind is not viable in Kentucky, so that's not something that I see being encouraged. Utilities need to move away from generation to distribution. That's part of the robust grid. The recent experience in Texas should be borne in mind when any pricing and regulation experiences are put in place. I don't think we want a repeat of that in Kentucky. $14,000 utility bills for a house for 1 month. The installation of PV was mentioned as far as economic benefits, but one that was not mentioned is that real estate taxes increase somewhat with the installation of solar. And therefore, schools and other local recipients of taxes will benefit. If the net metering is reduced in amount, then that tax will not be realized and the economic impact will be minimized. We also would appreciate you recognizing that KU and LG&E are members of or owned wholly by PP&L, an out-of-state company that is a utility and has some guarantees As far as profitability, I do not think that we want to make them the highest profitability type of industry in the country. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Sarah Lynn Cunningham. I think you're on mute. Try it again. You must have the dreaded double mute. We still cannot hear you, ma'am. You are showing on our system as unmuted, but we can't hear you. Ms. Cunningham, maybe you want to call in. Maybe that would help. I promise I will come back to you. I'm going to move on to the next person. And
did that work?
Yes, that worked. Sorry.
It made me reset all my settings, log out and log back in. That's something I've already done today, but you know, there's no account for this stuff. Sorry for the delay. I am Sarah Lynn Cunningham, and I am the Executive Director of the Louisville Climate Action Network. Our address is Post Office Box 4594, Louisville, Kentucky 40204. Would you like me to give my personal address as well?
Just for the record, please.
Beg your pardon?
Just for the record, please.
Okay. It is 2207 Lauderdale Road, Louisville 40205. We consist of 42 community and faith-based organizations, for-profit businesses, and educational institutions, almost all of whom fall into the general service rate tariff class. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this issue. When LG&E sells natural gas or burns coal and natural gas to produce most of its power, it emits large quantities of carbon pollution. So this case, in our view, affects not just all of its customers, but everybody on the planet. Given the announcement of the settlement yesterday, I have revised my comments, which I will submit in a bit more detail in writing before the evening is up. We provide energy efficiency services to our clients. Again, they're all general service or CGS billing class customers. They include nonprofits, churches, and for-profit businesses. We help them to figure out how to cut their carbon emissions and their cost. And it's become painfully obvious to us that that class is so focused on keeping their doors open and serving their clients that they don't even realize the rate case is happening. They don't figure this out until their bills jump up, and then it's too late. When we look over the settlement stipulations, we see no evidence that anybody was running interference for that class, and it appears as if they got the short end of the stick, and it seems to be a pattern. Like everybody else has said, when you allow the utilities to restructure the rates and pile on cost onto the flat services, it's inherently regressive and bad for business, and it appears to us that the primary purpose is to protect LG&E from its customers' investments in energy efficient and solar power. If you look at a water bill for Louisville, it's combined with the Metropolitan Sewer District. It is so loaded up with fixed charges that most bills are overwhelmingly fixed charges that you have no control over. meaning conserving water doesn't do you that much good. If the Public Service Commission keeps giving LG&E a bite of the apple every time it asks, we are logically going to end up with that situation when it comes to gas and electricity as well. We also think that for our clients, a lot of them, this is what I compute from the settlement announced yesterday, that their usage rates would go up 6% for gas, but 14% for power, which we find really indefensible during a pandemic. 14%, that's, particularly for restaurants, everything they touch has to be heated, cooled, frozen, or more than one of those functions, all of which require power or gas. This is enough to put them out of business. They have small margins right now. They're restricted on how many customers they can have into the store. We're just really kind of blown away by this tone-deaf proposal. So the next argument we want to make is the part about net metering. LG&E is parroting an apples to oranges industry demand that net metered solar customers be paid the wholesale rate for the power that LG&E is going to turn around and sell to our neighbors at retail rates. What LG&E never acknowledges is that they have to pay for very expensive long distance transmission infrastructure to get wholesale power, real wholesale power to their customers. In our case, in the case of rooftop solar, they only have to put a bidirectional meter in. So I think it's an incoherent and frankly manipulative argument that doesn't hold up to water and doesn't hold up to logic, and it should not be entertained. The last thing I want to say about that is the United States decades ago broke up Ma Bell, and we decided that it was not in the consumer's interest for AT&T to control all landlines, much less all mobile phones, a competing technology. I don't understand how it can be in the consumer interest to allow LG&E to monopolize the sun. They've already monopolized traditional power. I don't think they should be allowed to manipulate and monopolize the alternative technology of solar power. Our next point is that the public notice published in the Courier Journal for this case had a significant mathematical error. And I'm going to spare you my calculations. I'm going to submit them in writing. But when you use LG&E's numbers on the rate proposal and you multiply it out on their numbers, the real average residential customer impact is $277 per year, not the $215 that LG&E published on page 2 of their short notice and their long notice. So LCAN would like to ask the Public Service Commission to check their math. If I can do it, you guys can do it. Admittedly, I'm an engineer and y'all don't have any engineers anymore, but I know you have accountants who could check this stuff and make sure that they do not publish in the newspaper very misleading information that can throw off otherwise coherent discussions about public policy. Our next point is that LG&E used to include on its bills a simple statement about how many pounds of greenhouse gases were created to meet that customer's power use during that billing period. That little bit of information is very helpful and educational to customers. It helps them to understand why they need to take climate action. LG&E stopped including that a while ago, and probably because it didn't look good. But my attitude is this: customers are paying for the billing process. We're paying to print the paper or send the emails, whatever. We ought to get that information out of it. I don't know if you have the power to order them to do it, but if you do, we request that you order them to resume that practice for both power and natural gas.
I've let you go considerably over.
I have no sense of time, and I can believe that. I will send you the rest in writing. I was almost through, but I'll send you the rest in writing.
Thank you. I know
welcome.
there lots of people have been patiently waiting.
Agreed. Fair enough. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Mr. Hart Hogan.
Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Hart Hagan. I am a ratepayer. I live at 3020 Greenwood Avenue in Louisville. I'm also a reporter, and I've been covering the Bullitt County pipeline, and I've been in contact with landowners who are facing eminent domain and condemnation based on what is said to be a public interest, but it's very much a private interest. Public Service Commission exists to protect the public interest from private interest, but it has not been doing that. Jim Beam is as reported by Ryan Van Velzer of WFPL, Jim Beam wants a pipeline, but they don't want to pay for it. Price tag of that pipeline is now up to $70 million. There's no reason, if you look at the facts and circumstances, there's no reason for the ratepayers to be expected to pay for that because they're not benefiting from it. LG&E and Jim Beam and Jeff Bezos want to take Bullitt County and make it a wide spot in the road on the superhighway of transferring the public interest of Kentucky and the public interest of Bullitt County over to global financial capital. There's no reason why the ratepayers should be expected to pay rates based on irresponsible costs that is rooted squarely in avarice. The LG&E has paid for numerous consultants looking at the route of this pipeline that shouldn't have existed to begin with. They're paying, I'm told, $10,000 a month in legal fees to pursue landowners. And I've been to Bullitt County. Have you? Everybody's been through. Everybody's stopped at the truck stop. But have you been on the back roads? It is strikingly beautiful. It has many of the wildflowers that you might find in public parks. And the capital interests of the world want to take it and turn it into a wide spot in the road. They want to flatten all of it. They want to put a superhighway through. And LG&E wants to put in a 12-mile pipeline that does not serve the public interest. The Public Service Commission is supposed to stand in the way of that just raw, blatant extraction of the public interest. LG&E says the pipeline is needed to provide reliable service to existing customers. Well, that's hogwash. Existing customers are not experiencing unreliable service. And they said, we need to provide for growth. No, you don't. You don't need to provide for a type of growth that is cancerous. Not all growth is good. They're wanting to take prime farmland and forest land and turn it into a utopia for warehouses. And as for environmental impact, this pipeline is going to stretch across 6 or 7 streams and waterways that flow into the Salt River and then into the Ohio River. It's not a question of whether a pipeline will leak, it's when. So the Public Service Commission is supposed to stand in the way of private interests that want to extract public goods such as clean water. The Public Service Commission has apparently turned its head the other way while Jim Beam and LG&E make backroom deals for the last 10 years. Much of this has only come to the attention of the public in recent years. It's the Public Service Commission's job to roll up your sleeves, figure out what's going on, and be able and willing to say no. So LG&E wants to take the natural beauty and productive farmland of Bullitt County and turn it into a wide spot in the road for a superhighway, a for-profit superhighway, so that Jeff Bezos might add to his billions, so that Jim Beam shareholders, Beam Suntory shareholders might add to their millions, so that LG&E shareholders might add to their millions. And I know there are LG&E shareholders that are not millionaires, but most ratepayers do not own LG&E shares. If LG&E shareholders want to make profit, that's not our problem. As far as the public is concerned, and as far as the Public Service Commission should be concerned. So it's your job to do the right thing, to say no to the Bullitt County pipeline, so that Kentucky will not continue to be a sacrifice zone for the benefit of global financial capital. And Kentucky ratepayers are being asked to subsidize this whole process. This is organized theft, theft of our farmland, theft of our water, theft of our money as we pay our electric bills to pay for a pipeline that does not even serve existing ratepayers. It serves Jim Beam, as Ryan Van Velzer reported. They want a pipeline and they don't want to pay for it. That is not our problem. The Public Service Commission was organized to prevent this type of theft from the public purse and theft of the public interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hagan. I apologize for saying your name wrong.
No problem at all. Thank you.
Colin Gogan?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
All right.
You could start with your name and address, please. Suddenly, we can't hear you anymore.
My comments at this time are around the proposed changes in the net metering rate. I believe the overwhelming public interest is for the expansion of renewable energy generation at both the customer and the utility scale. The proposed changes, as others have highlighted, will crush the residential solar market here due to destroying the economics that currently make it justifiable. Also, the current level of renewable energy generation is extremely small and does not present any sort of threat to the utilities in question that would require any sort of urgent change to the current net metering rate at this time. And so that means that this requested change is essentially abuse of their monopoly power that is given to them, as for the purpose of serving the public interest in reliable delivery of electricity. Their primary argument seems to be the shifting of solar costs and subsidies from solar owners to non-solar owners, but has been pointed out by others. This is really just a red herring argument that oversimplifies what is a very complex calculation to determine what those costs should be. And so that is really what is required here to determine what a fair compensation rate is. But when others have looked at this in more detail, in other cases, looking at a range of studies, it is more likely than not that the current one-to-one rate is actually undervaluing the energy that's being generated currently by solar owners. And that solar benefits not only non-solar customers, but also the utility, as has been previously pointed out. As I mentioned, and others have brought up, this proposal would essentially destroy the economics of what is currently a growing industry here in the state, and so would certainly have a extreme negative impact on those that earn their livelihood through that. I also wanted to comment on the additional provisions that are proposed that would force current owners of rooftop solar that would make any changes to their system over the grandfather period into this reduced rate. So that basically prevents people from making changes and prohibits future energy choices, such as making changes from gas to electricity and covering those with solar generation. Also have some additional concerns based on some previous comments that maybe some of the details and are not being revealed, or that the behavior of the utility companies may change in the future based on some of their activities that have been highlighted earlier. Given the high stakes of the decision, I think a very careful, thorough, and independent analysis and study is required. I have not seen that as of yet, and so I think given your charged to defend the public interest, that I believe that you should reject the proposed changes at this time. And I think any decision anytime in the near future would be short-sighted and reckless. So the proposals in question fall well short of any sort of fair, just, and reasonable standard that would be required to make a change to the current rates. That's all I have. Thank you for your time and attention.
Could you give your name and address again? I believe you,
Sure, no problem.
you were cut out at that point.
Okay, my name is Colin Goggin. My address is 3324 Lyon Drive, Lexington, Kentucky, 40513.
Thank you.
Thank you.
William Wheeler. And if you are calling in, that's *6 to unmute.
Yes, I'm here.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Very good, yes. Thank you. My name is William Wheeler. I live in Lexington at 187 Jesselyn Drive. I'm concerned about the KU case, which is 2020-00349. The Kentucky Utilities Company continues to create a more and more unfair rate structure. I'm referring specifically to the fixed charge. 4 years ago, KU wanted to increase the fixed charge from $11 to $22. That met with a great deal of public objection. They wanted to increase from $11 to $22. After so much objection, the Public Service Commission cut back their proposed change to give them $1.50. 2 years ago, KU tried again for additional increase in the fixed charge. That time, they didn't announce the monthly amount that it would be. They changed their tactic and changed to a dollar amount per day. It was a cents amount, anyway, CENTS. And for some reason, the commission approved that entire proposal, which went from $12 to $16. Now, the current proposal wants to go from $16 to $18.50. That continues to penalize the low wattage users, who therefore are subsidizing the high wattage users. The ratio of the fixed charge to the total charge changes from about 7% for the high wattage users to 24%. That's the ratio. That means the amount that the fixed charge is compared to the total charge, from 7% to 24% for the low users. The amount of combined rate, that's what the rate would be if you compute the total charge by the amount of the kilowatt reading. The combined rate right now is about 10.8 cents. And that changes to 13.3 cents So what happens is the subsidizing the high wattage users, and that should not happen. So the commission has options to consider. It should not increase the fixed charge. In fact, it should cut back some of the fixed charge that was allowed 2 years ago. In order to be fair to the customers of Kentucky Utilities, the fixed charge should be reduced. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. Herb Hurst?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead.
My name is Herb Hurst, and I live at 4018 Hidden Falls Drive in Prospect, Kentucky, 40059. I believe that there's some evidence to support the idea that our continuing high use of fossil fuels in the modern world is harmful to our planet. Nonetheless, today's economies throughout the world depend on energy, and much of that is derived from fossil fuels. Notable efforts are being made to reduce this dependency by generating energy from alternative sources such as wind energy and solar energy. Many individual homeowners, such as I am, and many businesses, both large and small, are willing to do our part in this effort by using privately generated wind and solar systems. We have invested our hard-earned cash to reduce our demand for fossil fuel-generated energy and replace it with clean solar power. It is noteworthy that even LG&E is going full speed ahead on building their own massive solar array here in central Kentucky. But these solar power options are sold by a monopoly utility, LG&E, at a premium price. Our electric utilities are monopoly businesses. And in instances like electric supply, there's good reason for it, but it shouldn't allow them to devalue electricity that is generated by independent solar owners. The utility actually benefits from that extra power produced by independent solar systems and sent into the grid quite a bit. LG&E is paid for all the energy that flows through one of its meters into homes and businesses, even if they didn't produce it. When and if one's extra solar power flows back through the utility meter to LG&E and then into a neighbor's home, the utility, in this case LG&E, gets paid full retail for that power. In addition, independent solar systems are capable of adding extra power into the grid at the very time energy needs are highest, like on hot July days here in Kentucky. So when LG&E asks you to approve them paying only 20 cents on the dollar for this independent power through net metering, it's just not right. It's seeking to abuse their monopoly power while they are benefiting from the power being supplied by independent solar systems feeding into their network. Just as LG&E asks that electric rates fairly and accurately reflect their investments that produce power, why shouldn't the owners of independent solar systems be paid equally for the power they produce and LG&E ultimately sells? Thank you for your time, and I hope that you'll decide that reimbursement for net metering in Kentucky should remain as it has been on a one-to-one basis. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Hurst. Todd Mao? Go ahead, Mr. Mao. I'm sorry, we cannot hear you.
You can hear me now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. You'd start with your name and address, please.
Okay. Okay, yes, my name is Todd Mao. I gotta wait for this plane. This helicopter. Hang on a second. Get it clear. Okay, my name is Todd Mao, And my address is 3941 Forest Green Drive in Lexington, Kentucky.
We can hear you. Go ahead with your
Okay,
comments.
so solar energy generated by homeowners and businesses is a very efficient and safe means to produce electricity. Those who generate this electricity from solar power shouldn't need to be fairly compensated. The question should not be whether to reduce the credit given to your homegrown, local, clean, safe energy production to offset energy bills, but how much money, as in cash, utility companies should pay extra for these businesses and homeowners to produce this energy. It is disturbing that net metering is even being considered to be reduced. The incestuous relationship between corporate corruption and government must end. This ritual of finding gullible legislators, then donating to the political campaigns of those gullible mouthpieces to enrich the few at the expense of the public good, must end for the good of Kentucky and America. Even when these plans to end net metering are defeated, utility companies repeatedly bring them back from the dead to increase their profit margin. Who's looking out for the well-being of the public? Who's making sure that electric power is as inexpensive and reliable as possible? The Kentucky Public Service Commission needs to look to the future and keep public utilities in check. If net metering ends, as we know it today, this will be a bitter pill for solar energy producers. If one looks to the future, I suspect that when more innovation in batteries occurs, and keep in mind that the rate of innovation and change is increasing dramatically, that when it is economically feasible, property owners will tell the utility companies that they no longer need their overpriced power or their services at all. Is the government then going to demand that property owners pay into a utility system that refuse to fairly compensate property owners for the power they produced previously, and now want them to pay for power they don't even use at all? So if utility companies cannot or will not agree to pay solar energy producers the same amount of money that they charge, then perhaps these utilities need to meet the same fate as a wagon wheel or the phone booth. If electric utilities cannot or will not sacrifice their dominance and profit margin for the good of society, perhaps those businesses have outserved their usefulness. The corporate corruption must end. Lying to the public that electricity costs must increase if solar electricity producers are given the same credit for the electricity they produce as the energy they use must end. These utilities must be honest with the public, and they're not. The Kentucky Public Service Commission can no longer bend over backwards to serve the interests of the public utility. While utility companies use false arguments and whine about maintenance electricity transmission costs, these corporate extortionists and the well-paid lobbyist lackeys fail to account for the immense savings in capital investment, transmission costs, labor costs, etc., that utility companies and society gain when solar power is produced locally by property owners in a decentralized network. Sure, utility companies may not need as much capital investment or as many investors who also demand a return on their investment at the expense of higher utility rates for vulnerable customers if they work with property owners in a fair manner to efficiently produce inexpensive, reliable electricity. However, a reduction in the profit margin and amount of electric utilities However, a reduction in the profit margin and amount of investors may not necessarily be a bad thing. When solar electricity is produced locally, power outages caused by disasters, natural or otherwise, can be mitigated because the power generation is not centrally located. If Puerto Rico had a decentralized power generation network, the morbidity and mortality it experienced due to hurricanes could have been vastly reduced. Similarly, Kentucky has its share of natural disasters such as tornadoes, ice storms, etc. So the example is quite applicable. Unfortunately, America is also vulnerable to terrorist threats, including but not limited to cyber, armed militias, etc., that can attack power grids. It is much harder to cripple a decentralized power grid using locally produced solar and even wind in some more rural areas than it would be for a more centralized network that we have now. I suspect that utility companies can save plenty of money by cutting administrative and lobbyist positions and also the legal fees if they would just stop trying to end net metering as we know it today. Rather than focusing on getting big money returns for investors by constantly going to the Public Service Commission to increase electricity rates, perhaps electric utilities can finally focus on fairly partnering with property owners homeowners, rental property owners, business owners, etc., to produce local, efficient, safe, enduring power that benefits landowners and consumers. Public utilities are given a monopoly in exchange for being a public good. When utilities focus on profit rather than the public good, they have outserved their usefulness. That concludes my discussion.
Thank you. I don't believe those folks that we called their name and they did not speak, I don't see them as being on. So I will remind anyone who's listening on YouTube that written comments are accepted by email to the Public Information Officer at psc.info@ky.gov. If you would include the case number and provide your name and address in the body of the email. Again, the Louisville Gas and Electric case number is 2020-00350, and the Kentucky Utilities is 2020-00349. And if there's no one else signed up to speak, which I have heard that there's not, this public comment meeting is adjourned.